Well, before I tell you about the fire we had, I thought I'd just explain the wood stove a little bit, because that was the culprit. We bought this wood stove for $300. It was used. We only had it, the guy said he only used it twice, and I really did believe him. He actually recrated it inside the original crate. Now, in order to replace this, it would cost $2,800. This has been an interesting learning process. I learned a lot about firewood. I've learned a lot about wood stoves and Grandma and Grandpa's wood stove compared to this wood stove. I have learned how wood burns, the temperatures and all that stuff. It's a lot more complicated, and I know people think I'm nuts, than simply throwing a log in there and letting it burn. There's a lot that goes into this new EPA standardized wood stove, whatever you want to call them. It makes absolute sense to have one of these wood stoves. Those reburners, I've said it before, but people think I'm nuts. Oh, who cares? Just burn some firewood. I'm going to go down and cut down a tree. Well, I'm not a big fan of a lot of work. I'm pretty lazy, as a matter of fact. So I will take the time to study something to see if I can find a way not to have to do so much work. Maybe I end up doing more work trying to figure out how to get out of work, but instead of having to burn, in some cases, people will tell me, 10 cords of wood I got to burn each year. I'm okay with burning 1 cord. That's all right by me, because 10 cords of wood, that's 30 truckloads of firewood, or 30 14-inch trees. Mine's 3 truckloads. Split it and be done. So as you know, we got 15 years worth of firewood sitting out there. Oh, well, we had. I mean, we don't have that much now. We've been here, what is this, 4th year? It doesn't matter. So we've used some of that firewood, but we still got a bunch left. And we'll start replenishing here pretty soon. But I've learned a ton about firewood. I actually know different species of firewood now, of trees, I should say. And around here we have lots of oak on this property. But around in the Missouri area, we have hickory. We had a lot of walnut on this property too. So I cleaned up this property with some old dead trees and different things, and there was no rotten firewood. We got rotten firewood here. We got this from somebody from Facebook Marketplace, and I call it punky wood. I don't know what it's really called, but there's some rot to it, but it's still usable. The problem with this stuff is it's like a sponge. You leave it outside, you use the moisture meter to measure how much water is in it, and it maxes out the meter past 56%. I've learned that if I bring it in and I set it fairly close to the wood stove, that it sucks that water out pretty quickly, because we got quite a bit of this. Now we bought some, and the guy brought a lot of this punky wood also, but we also got a lot from people giving it away for free. And you can't say no to free. You just have to learn about it. Now, then there's BTUs. When you can compare BTUs to propane and cost, and how many gallons of propane does it take to make 30 million BTUs, and once you figure out that number, then you know how much your propane costs, or how much does 30 million BTUs for 1 quart of wood cost, because that's what it is, roughly. Oak, I think, is 30 million BTUs. Hickory goes up. It's been a long time since I looked, but you can Google it, BTU of oak, and it'll give you a whole list. And it goes all the way from the largest BTU all the way down to the smallest BTU. And I just find this fascinating that all the science goes into these wood stoves. I made a video a while back. Some guy asked how he could build one of these, and the company came back kind of sarcastically. The guy wanted to build a real big one, and the company said, well, you're going to heat yourself out. These don't require a lot of firewood. The firewood burns at 500 degrees. The smoke comes up, and his so is reburners up at the top. Air comes in and it catches that smoke on fire. And I think it was 1300 degrees, don't quote me, but that smoke is producing more heat than the firewood itself. Well, heck, let's take advantage of that. How do I do that? Oh, I got a real complicated process. I mean, this thing, it's amazingly complicated. So how Grandma and Grandpa used to do it is they go out in the woods about, October-ish maybe, and we'd start cutting down trees, or Grandpa did. Grandpa would cut down the trees, and he'd knock off the branches, and Grandma and me would start pulling the branches out, and then he'd start cutting them up in logs. And so then we'd carry the logs and put them in the trailer of the tractor, and then we'd bring the tractor home with the trailer, with the logs in the trailer. We'd split it, we'd stack it, And then when it started getting cold, Grandma would start bringing the firewood in and throwing it into the wood stove. Pretty simple. Now I want to tell you about this complicated process that we have to go through to get firewood for this thing. We get on Facebook Marketplace. Whoa, what's that? And we wait for somebody to say, hey, free firewood. So we go over there and they say, yeah, you can just pick it up out of the backyard. Okay, great, thanks. So instead of having to run the chainsaw, we just throw it in the back of the truck and bring it home. Of course, we still have to split it. Now, here's where things get really complicated. We stack it up like Grandma and Grandpa did. And instead of burning it in November, we wait 2 to 3 years before we burn it. Oh, man, I mean, that is such hard work, just sitting there watching that firewood. I don't know how we did it. I mean, it was absolutely amazing just sitting there watching firewood. And that's it. That's what I don't understand. Why is it such a big deal to burn dry firewood? Well, I do know why. Because people procrastinate. I see it all the time right up here down this road. It gets cold, 5 degrees. And all of a sudden, everybody's out with their suits on, their Carhartt suits on, and got their chainsaws, and it won't start because it's really cold. And they go out there and they start cutting down trees, and they're splitting it out there in the cold, and then they got to throw it in the wood stove instead of doing it 3 years earlier. Now, like I said, Carolyn and I are going to start getting more firewood this spring. I mean, we probably got 8-10 years left of firewood left. But we don't want to get low because we want to have plenty of time to dry the firewood. So we'll get 3 loads each year, a cord of wood each year, and let it dry. There's a lot of advantages to burning dry firewood. Now, I know I've talked about this a lot, but this is very important. The most important advantage, I can't convince anybody of anything else, but the one thing I seem to convince a lot of people on is, look at the glass. It's clean. Isn't that something else? It's clean. And the reason it's clean is because I burn dry firewood. Wet firewood. If you just kind of imagine this. First of all, when you're burning wet firewood, 70% of the heat that you're producing from the wood is going to evaporate that water that is in the firewood. You just turned it from an 80% efficient wood stove like mine. I think they get up to 90-95% efficient nowadays. This one's actually obsolete because it's not efficient enough anymore. And so you've just made an 85% efficient wood stove 30% efficient because you just put wet firewood in it. And the thing is a lot of that firewood goes to waste because you have this big clump of charcoal down at the bottom that didn't burn because it was wet. But hey, your way's better because you didn't have to wait the 3 years to dry firewood. I know, I'm telling you. I got this thing recently, just a couple days ago. Oh, I don't know why I didn't buy one of these earlier. Look at this. I can pick up a log now without a lot of struggle, and I can put it back into the center of the pile. Wow, I love this thing. I don't know why I didn't get one earlier. So the glass is clean because there's no creosote. What happens is that water mixes in with the smoke, and instead of burning off there at the tubes, it becomes a sticky tar. You got that smoke that's got water in it. It's really sticky, so it sticks to the window. The other thing it does is it sticks to the chimney. Now, I'm not a big fan of climbing up on the roof all the time because I got a steep roof. I don't like it. I'd rather only climb up on the roof once a year like I'm supposed to, according to this is something else too. I know it's a lot of work. The instructions, I read them. I'm telling you, I must be insane going through this kind of labor. I don't even know what I was thinking, reading that instruction. And the thing is I didn't read it just once. I read it nearly once a year. Oh, as a matter of fact, I read it twice this year already because I wanted to read it again before I made this video. I'm just in glutton for torture. That creosote will stick in your chimney. So now you got to clean it 2 or 3 times a year. And you're supposed to have professionals come out and clean it. And well, I'm not even going to hire a professional. No, I'll do it myself. Creosote is really flammable. What? How is creosote flammable? Well, because you've taken the smoke, and smoke is wood particles. It's unburned wood that went up into your chimney. It didn't burn, so it's wet, it's stuck. So it's unburned wood, and it's kind of like a tar. At 500 degrees, you get a spark to come up there and hit that tar, catches on fire, And then you get this really neat light show. It's pretty exciting to watch. The light show is a glowing red chimney that could, and does many times, and has many times, and burned down a lot of houses, melt the chimney. And now you have this open exposed flame shooting up into your attic. I'm telling you, that's a lot of excitement. Whoa. Yeah. No, we don't want any of that work. You're watching that firewood dry. Oh, it's just complete torture. I mean, I'm just, like I said, glutton for punishment. I'm watching that firewood dry and reading the instructions and then doing this stupid thing of getting on Facebook Marketplace. Well, can't stand that kind of work. No. I'd rather be out there like you guys, cutting down 30 trees and then stacking 30 truckloads of firewood, bringing it home, and then splitting 30 trees worth. That is the proper amount of work. That's how you do work. Whatever. I just don't understand why people aren't buying into this yet. They would rather argue all day long telling me that I am wrong, that they've been burning firewood for years and talking about how they've been burned 10 cords of firewood and they can't keep. I mean, I literally got a comment on how to keep your chimney clean the other day, and the guy said, my windows are always dirty. Then watch the video. Another problem I have with being on YouTube, well, it's probably the biggest problem. The YouTube experts tell me that I need to interact with my audience in the comment section. And okay, that makes sense. And the other thing they always say, and you should make videos about that interaction. Hey, that makes sense too. So I get two types of comments. Love you, Rob. You're doing a great job. I agree. So I struggle. I try to figure out a way to make a video for them. And I really do love those comments. They're the best ones. Love you, Rob. I mean, I would love to read all the comments on YouTube. Love you, Rob. You're great, Rob. Thanks, Rob. Awesome job, Rob. Like I said, I do appreciate those comments. But then I get those comments, I disagree with you. And you're wrong. You're an idiot. Well, those, although I don't like them, are easier to make videos about. First of all, I get to make fun of them because they always spell idiot wrong and that kind of stuff. But the other day, I disagree with you. You can burn pine and cedar. And he goes on to explain what I need to do. I want you to do an experiment. He wants me to cut down a cedar tree, let it dry. Once it's dry, then I'm going to put it in my wood stove and burn it on YouTube so I can show you that you can burn cedar. What? Why would I do that? First of all, I did this really insane thing. I read the instructions where the engineers and the manufacturer of this now obsolete Wood Pro wood stove said, don't burn pine and cedar. It actually says softwood, so you Google softwood, and it says evergreens. Hardwood is trees that lose their leaves. I don't get creosote, that's just wrong. I mean, this guy was upset. He disagreed with me. I didn't make the rules. The people who made the wood stove made the rules. I know the people in Northwest just can't stand the idea that the wood stove company says don't burn pine. I got on YouTube and I watched this guy burn pine. I did too. And you know what was amazing? The glass was dirty. But that's the guys you're supposed to be watching because they did what I really wanted them to do, which was burn pine. The first year we were here, we really did struggle with the wood stove. We caught on fire twice, actually. We moved here in March. And I started doing several things immediately. And one of those things was I started cutting firewood because I knew I was going to need firewood for the upcoming winter. So all summer I cut firewood. I knew though that my problem was I was going to have wet firewood. There was no way around it. But then we moved in here in January. So we weren't even here a full winter. Within a few weeks, we actually had 2 creosote fires. The first one, I noticed a big puff of smoke outside, and the chimney outside was on fire, that little chimney cap they put on it. So I climbed up there, and the first thing I ended up doing while I was climbing up there was I stepped in a gooey tar substance. There was so much creosote, it had dripped down onto the roof, and it was just making puddles of creosote. Then a couple more weeks, I opened the door and I heard, so I shut the door real quick and the noise went away. I opened the door and we started to glow a little bit. So I shut the door, shut the vent, and it died off. Well, the very next day we had to clean out the chimney. Well, right after that, it started turning warmer, springtime, and I'm trying to just keep the place a little bit warm, not trying to create a big fire. So when we moved here, there was a stack of cedar branches that were dry. So I went out there and I broke a bunch of them. I put those cedar branches in there. Window was clean, lit the stove, shut the door, and within 2 minutes, maybe 3, the glass was completely covered, so much so I couldn't see into the fire anymore. So yeah, there's creosote in there. So if you'll click this up next box, it'll take you to a video where I was talking about the well. So if I can inspire you to be safe out there. Oh, and read instructions. Sing of your dreams. Thanks for watching.